Hello, brothers and sisters at the gate. Today I would like to introduce the launching of the journey through the Epistles of Paul. In this journey, we will be covering the book of Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon. Total of 13 books, 87 chapters. There will be introductions to each of the 13 books. So with the introductions and the 87 chapters, that comes out to an even 100. We will be starting today and going through July 31st. August 1st, we'll start a new series, but I'd like your suggestions on what you'd like to hear. We got some choices. We got the Gospels, we got the book of Acts, the book of Revelation, the book of Hebrews, and also the epistles of Peter, James, John, and Jude. So please submit your suggestions of what you'd like to hear next. And I'd like to answer one question I'm sure that's going to be on everybody's mind, or at least a lot of people. And that is, why the King James Version? The only answer I have is I don't have any audio for any other versions. But if you consider the voice of the narrator along with the King James Version, I think they go really well together. And there are some antiquated words in there, but still pretty easy to understand. So without any further ado, let's go right into the introduction to the book of Romans. This letter was written by Paul on his third missionary journey. Since the apostle spent 3 months in Greece, and he recommends Phoebe, the deaconess from Centria, who probably carried the letter to Rome, it is very likely that the letter was written from Corinth. But it is possible that another Grecian city such as Philippi was the place. Dates for this epistle have ranged from AD 53 to AD 58. The years 55 or 56 seem to be the most likely dates for the letter. The apostle planned to leave Greece and go to Palestine with the collection he had gathered from the Gentile churches. Paul wanted this collection to be presented to the poor saints at Jerusalem by him personally, along with representatives from Gentile churches. He felt that this gesture by the Gentiles would show their love for their Christian brothers in Palestine and demonstrate the unity of the church. He then intended to go to Rome. From Rome, he wanted to go to Spain. Before Paul turned his back for a time on his westerly goals, he penned this mighty letter to the Romans and sent it westward. What kind of a writing is Romans? It is a letter to a group or groups of believers in Rome. The fact that it expresses mighty, profound, and sublime thoughts about God does not invalidate the classification of this book as a letter. Paul had prayed for the readers unceasingly and longed to have fellowship with them. He wanted them to pray for him because of the dangers that threatened. Hence, Romans is not a systematic doctrinal treatise. Paul's thoughts are developed logically, but he surely does not try to present all of his doctrinal teaching. Romans is a letter of instruction touching upon those main truths of the gospel that Paul felt were needed by those in Rome. Since the needs of Gentiles were similar, whether they were in Rome or Colossae, there is a universal note in the teaching. Paul begins with some preliminary comments to prepare the reader for all that he intends to write, and so establishes excellent rapport between himself and his readers. Then he launches forth into the subject of the importance of righteousness in man's relation with God. He first graphically points out that man is not righteous, then carefully answers the question, how does a man become righteous before God? He reinforces this with a discussion of how a man should live who has become righteous before God. Being a Jew, Paul looked at mankind as divided into two classes, Jew and Gentile. As a Christian, how should he look at these two divisions? He answers this when he surveys the plan of God for Jew and Gentile. Here he lays a distinct basis for a Christian philosophy of history. Then, coming to the area of application, he gives specific exhortations for Roman Christians concerning their outlook, attitude, and action. In conclusion, he shows his deep interest in the Roman believers. They were in his territory, and he intended to visit them. Until that was possible, he had to send greetings by mail, give a final warning, and commit them to God, who alone could establish them.